So, I'm recording this in my car while sitting in my driveway because fuck it. Um, but I had a thought just now. Um, it's pretty well regarded. I don't know. It perpetuated this idea that uh, trends repeat, and recently there's been a lot of discussion about the fact that what's entering the pop music sphere, or at least more becoming more well, I don't know, but what's becoming more prominent in newer music, even like more indie stuff, is this pseudo 80's type thing with the explosion almost of popularity in synthwave style electronic music that are utilizing really old 80's synths for modern interpretations of this music. The idea is why is this happening? Specifically, why is it happening with artists, and why is it being enjoyed by people who never lived in that time? There are a couple of videos out there that the title is basically nostalgia for a time in which you never existed. Um, the synthwave, very, very big example of pure pseudo 80's sound that is being made by people and enjoyed by people that were born in the 90's. And I just had the thought of maybe I get why. And it's because you think about it, these sounds really were never necessarily bad. Um, even like the most trite garbage mainstream 80's crap still could sound catchy. And I think that's the idea, or at least what the phenomenon might be stemming from, is that these sounds never became bad. They never stopped being good. They just went out of fashion. And things go out of fashion for various reasons, but I would think that one of the main reasons is people get bored. People get bored really quickly. Trends come and go because they're trends. That's what they do. You have a fad that comes in and it's new and fresh and original, and then it stops being new and fresh and original and falls by the wayside. And the reason now is that you have all of these young 20-somethings that are creating music, or maybe even 30-somethings that are creating music from a time either before they were born or whenever they were really young and didn't get much of a chance to experience all that. So they hear these sounds, they experience this stuff that the Gen Xers already went through. That the Gen, I don't know, whatever the hell is before Gen X, all of them, they already saw all this. It's not anything new and fresh and original. It's just derivative to them. But for people like me, who are 20, 25, 26, maybe 30 tops, to them it's something new in a way. Even though it's old, it feels new because I didn't live in the 80's. I didn't get to see that whole culture, that weird, like, the origin of cyberpunk type culture, I didn't get that. And that's why things like Digital Love Story, a game that's based completely around the idea of traversing old school dial-up BBSs, is like, it feels nostalgic, but I I never had that experience. And it's just because I think it's because, at least, I'm aware that that exists. I have known for a long time that 90s, but really old dial-up BBSs, I mean, even back in the late 80s, I want to say, existed. I knew that. But experiencing it gives you that sense of nostalgia, even though it's not there, because you knew it existed, but now you're feeling it, you're seeing it. I think that might be what it is. This sense of calling back to something familiar that feels unfamiliar because it's so outdated, that it's so far separated from you at this point. It's kind of like the idea of going back. Well, it's exactly that. That's the definition of nostalgia. Going back and watching something or experiencing something years and years down the line after it's no longer really that familiar to you. That you get this rush of like, oh yeah, this thing, how quaint, but at the same time charming, that kind of thing. And I think that might be kind of what's going on with modern music. Because the reason this even got brought up in my head is there's definitely some of that going on with MGMT's new album. Somebody in one of the comments on a video I watched said it's almost like new goth, like new metal but new goth. And yeah, it's kind of like that. Paramore, their most recent album had a lot of 80s synth pop influence, and I think that whole 80s synth pop thing is making a comeback right now because of all the people who might have been into that if they had been born in the 70s or the the late 60s, but they weren't. So now they're discovering this culture, and they have the self, they have the ability to participate in it, so they are. But they also have the influence of the last 10, 20 years of modern culture to kind of mutate it, to transform it into something that's similar yet the same, so that you have the possibility for like vaporwave tracks with trap beats involved and that kind of stuff. You have modern production sensibilities to go with old school synth sounds and things like that, so that you can have this weird mesh of two different eras of culture. Because, like I say, that old culture didn't necessarily it was never necessarily bad. It's just that people got tired of it. It stopped being relevant because new and more exciting things started coming through. I'm sure that what will happen is in the next 10, 20 years, we're going to see a resurgence in rock music. We're going to see grunge and things like that make some kind of comeback, especially when you consider that trap and hip-hop in general are just saturating everything right now, along with an overall sense of distaste for the current political climate. I think that goes straight into breeding an environment for a comeback for that kind of post-punk is a genre, but like this post-punk kind of thing, this revival of that idea. But it won't sound, you won't have Nirvana 2. You'll have somebody who goes for that same kind of sound, but they will bring in something else from the modern era, whether that be trap, whether that be 80s synth. Who knows? We don't. That's the whole idea, that it's going to be something new and fresh and different. But Yeah, I think if I keep going, I'm just gonna waffle. So I'm gonna cut it off here because I actually want to post this one because I've recorded like at least 15 of these and I've just deleted them all because I ramble and don't actually say anything. But yeah, I think that has something to do with why why things like vaporwave, why synthwave, and all this are kind of 80s synth pop are coming into modern media so hard, and like 80s 80s graphics and things like that, where you have the like really bright neon colors, like Far Cry Blood Dragon, like that whole fucking thing, um, and the duck hunting season, I think it is, the VR hunting or duck hunt game, like that does a lot with that. There's that VFX artist who did the stuff, did some stuff for that game. Um, like all of that plays back to that idea that it's these young creators who never experienced the 80s but know of it and are trying to understand it and trying to integrate that into modern cultural sensibilities. And I think that's the idea of what's going on. Anyway, like I said, need to stop now because I'm just gonna repeat myself. So yeah.